Good evening, everyone. We acknowledge the Australian, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of this nation. We acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nation as traditional custodians of the land on which Maribyrnong Council is located and where we conduct our business. We pay our respects to ancestors and elders past and present, and we are committed to honouring Australian, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' unique culture and spiritual relationships to the land, waters and sea, and their rich contribution to society. Good evening. My name is Lyndall and welcome to tonight's very exciting evening in conversation with Behrouz Boochani and Bruno Lettieri. Sorry. If you have any questions during the evening, please feel free to post them on our question and answer function at the top of your screen. We'll do our best to get to them. Behrouz Boochani is a writer, a journalist, scholar, cultural advocate and a filmmaker who through his work brought to the attention of the world the plight of refugees. But also he brought to our attention the power of music, song, poetry and stories. Bruno Lettieri is a conversationalist extraordinaire who loves all things literary. Through his interviews and work, Bruno reminds us of the importance and the power of sharing the story. Over to you, Behrouz and Bruno.
Hello, can you see me now? Hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you. So it's over to you and Behrouz, Bruno.
Behrouz, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, truly?
How are you?
Yeah, I met you about a year ago, and Janet Galbraith and I were on the panel, and now I can see your face, and you couldn't see my face last time.
Yeah, I think last year you saw my face too.
I could see your face on the big, beautiful screen. At the end of the Australian Story last night that we all watched, and there you were cycling around a beautiful parkland in Christchurch, and you had your warm coat on. It was a lovely scene. It heartened all of us. In the program, you said, this is freedom for me, riding a bike, walking in the street of the city.
Yeah, I think that is,
hello to people.
Yeah, that is my understanding of life and freedom. That life is this, just simple thing and you enjoy simple things. But I think those people who really become happy when they watch Australian Story, or when I arrive in New Zealand, I think it's because they have been following my journey for such a long time. And many of those people have been a part of my team and my journey.
Yeah.
And actually they feel that they are a part of this story. And that's why when I got freedom in New Zealand, and now I think people feel happy because they are a part of this story. And I think that is very important that we recognize that, we acknowledge that many people in Australia and around the world, they feel happy because this story is important for them. And I think that is a connection.
Yep. Primo Levi, the Italian poet, says, in each, the trace of each. We belong to each other. We have bits of each other in all of us. As a poet, do you feel that strongly?
Yeah, I have been thinking about belonging and what is belonging means. Not only when I was in Manus Island, and not now that I'm in New Zealand. You know, in whole my life.
Yeah.
And I think that relate to identity.
Yeah.
And the concept of identity. It's very important and had a big role and important impact on my life and my thinking, because I born as a court, I born as a minority.
Yeah.
And just if I give you an example, when I was 6, 7 years old, I went to a school, and for the first time, I found out that I have to talk with my teacher, and I have to speak in the school with a different language, a language that I didn't know. And of course, identity is very important concept for all of the Kurds and minorities, for everyone, but for Kurdish people, especially in Iran, is important. And so I have been thinking about identity, and that's why is a part of, actually a key part of my works is about identity. Yeah, so now that I'm in New Zealand, yeah, I should, still I am struggling with different kind of difficulties, so we can talk about that.
Sure. You have your Kurdish language, then you have Farsi, and now you are speaking to us in maybe your third or even fourth language. That must complicate that sense of identity you're talking about, does it?
Yeah, definitely, but it's not only about language. It's not only about language. So language is beautiful. Even the system, the education system force you to learn that language. And when you learn it, you find it beautiful. So I don't want to politicize the languages.
Sure.
All of the languages are beautiful. But the identity that I talk about is, so in Iran, I faced the identity, with how the system marginalized the Kurdish people, how they try to, the system designed to take our identity and assimilate us. And so when I left Iran, and exactly, I left Iran because of my cultural activities. So when I left Iran, so they exiled me to Manus Island. So I became a refugee. So when you become a refugee, suddenly, immediately, you lose many things. And you lose your identity under the concept of refugee. When someone call you a refugee, you lose many things. And that's why I have been fighting and struggling to challenge this, to get my identity back in front of the system there, and later in the public. Because when I was in Iran, of course, I was a normal person like others. I had my career, I had family, but now that this story finished, it seems that finished, I have another challenge with my identity, which is a picture that created by the media, by the mainstream media. So I should struggle to challenge this imagination of me as a person.
Just at the end of Australian Story, you are reading a beautiful piece that you have written, and Arnold Zabel's voice merges with yours. And you say, Behrouz, I feel deeply that I belong to the earth. I belong to nature, and I believe in solid ground. I think we are human and don't have any shelter but humanity. Has this been a lifetime's work as a poet, as a journalist, as a political activist to understand that?
Yeah, I think it is very interesting. So this piece has a story. So when I was in Manus Island, I was in conversation with Arnold Zabel, and we were exchanging letters. And we published, I think, 3 conversations in The Age. newspaper, and we published this there. So that written to my experience in Manus Island. After the riot in Manus Island, they relocated us on that night to on a ground, a soccer ground. So we were there. So when I look at the prison, the camp, I look at it and it was incredible. Just I imagine that now we are in a remote island, and even we are not a part of the island. We are in a prison on the remote island, and even they take the prison from us because of the riot. They relocated us to on a soccer ground. Then I was looking at the sky, and actually, honestly, it was a deep feeling that where we should go, we don't have a place on this earth. Even they don't let us to have a peace on inside the prison, and they take it from us. So, but later when through my experience, I work with many people, and then I wrote this, that I belong to the nature, I belong to this earth, and we belong to each other. So that came from that experience, which is, I think, yeah, I hope that I never feel like that again, that I look at the sky and think that we now have a place, even a small place on the earth. So we should go find a place somewhere else.
You finish that quote with, I belong to humans beyond the political borders. I am a free man. Beyond borders. It's an extraordinary concept, Behrouz, isn't it? Because here we are as Australians terribly worried about our borders, and we've created the prison that we put you in because of this so-called fearfulness of our borders. And yet you say, I want to live beyond borders. It's an extraordinary kind of counter poetic claim, isn't it? Tell us about living beyond borders.
Yeah, I think that is, I feel that it is a philosophy of my works, because I passed many borders, and I was born in the border. So I was born in the village in west of Iran, and the Kurdish people separated with a border that created by the superpowers on the First World War. And that's why we always think about border. But I think, when I say border, I mean mostly the border between the people and humanity and human being.
Yeah,
and that's why, so I'm not an idealist person. I don't feel that, of course, I know that this world created by the political borders, and so everywhere we go, we should show passport and this. What I mean is that we human, we feel each other. And now that I'm talking with you, I wrote a piece for the Saturday paper. Hopefully that they publish it this month. That I talk about this too. That how when I was in Manus Island, I created a connection through the moon. So there are some people from Indonesia, Australia, and Manus and Nauru, in the same time, they were looking at the moon to feel each other, to send a message to each other, and feel each other beyond the borders. So when I say that, I mean that. But of course, the political borders exist, and that is the reality of our world. That is the reality of our world. But what is happening now is division or separation between the hearts, that people really don't feel each other and don't see each other. That is the problem.
So
now
is the intention of your writing and your book and your filmmaking and your poetry, is it to get people back to being able to speak heart to heart, to feel heart to heart?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think in my works, for example, in Manus Island, especially in my journalism works, I was thinking about the indigenous people there, because it is a part of this system, this colonial mentality, that they talk in the media in a way that local people don't exist.
Yeah.
And that island is belong to no one. But that island is belong to many people. That island has a history, and a community live there. So that's why I think on base of this philosophy, I think my perspective was bigger, and that's why I didn't only talk about the refugees, because I could see the local people there are suffering because of this policy, and how the security companies are using that island, how the Australian government is using that island, and even PNG government. So that's why I think on base of this philosophy, you are able to see more things, not only yourself. So in Manus Island, yeah.
So Behrouz, you are in prison. You are on the lowest level of this hierarchical system. You are the most oppressed. And yet, through your writing, you have this capacity to see not only the system that is oppressing you, but also the view of the Manusian people and their place in their own island. That is an extraordinary thing. Does that come from the training of being a journalist, a writer, a poet? Or is it something that the situation...
No, that doesn't come actually from journalism, and doesn't come from the education system. That doesn't come from writing or this.
Where does it come from?
If we accept that, so it's possible many people don't agree with us, but I think that came from a resistant knowledge that created in a land such as Kurdistan. So Kurdish people have been struggling against colonialist system for at least 100 years.
Yeah.
So 100 years fighting, it's mean that 100 years culturally fighting, politically, and that means that the Kurdish people created a resistant knowledge through their history. So this knowledge actually created people in Kurdistan that when they want to challenge a system, they want to challenge it fundamentally. So I borrow this culture, and I borrow it and I reproduce it in Manus Island. So in Kurdish resistance has two elements. I think I should explain this.
Please tell us, yes.
Yeah. First, that the Kurdish people, I mean a part of the Kurdistan resistance knowledge, that we never, I mean the Kurdish people, the Kurds never want to become or stay in a victim position. Yeah, our resistance always challenge this concept, victim. We always challenge this. And the second thing is that the Kurdish culture, resistance culture and knowledge, it says that they want to challenge the whole system. So I borrow this in Manus Island, and if you look at my works, not through your imagination, because it's possible and many people, when they hear my name, they look at me as a victim. But my works represent me. If people go and read my works, they can see that I challenge victim concepts. And the second thing, I didn't fight, I didn't write to make the camp a better place. I wanted to break this policy. I wanted to challenge the whole system. That's why 6 years ago, when I started my journey in Manus Island, I mean my struggle, I was thinking about this, to challenge the system.
Do you think you have succeeded in that challenge? And how do you measure that? How do you know that?
I think it's very difficult because, you know, this work, and it's not only my work, you know, I should say that. I mean, the refugees in Manus Island. And now if you look at the refugees in Australia, that they were transferred from Manus Island to Australia, just yesterday, the story published in Guardian, I wrote about those musicians in the camp.
You did.
So if you look at, if you look at this, actually that culture that created by the refugees in Manus Island now exists in Australia, the tensions. And the refugees speak out, they challenge the system. You know, I think that is very important. That is like a lesson to Australian society, that how these refugees have been challenging this system through their resistance. You know, and I am only one of them. When I came to New Zealand, I was on a street. Let me talk like a writer telling a story. I was walking in the street and someone came to me and said that, are you that guy who was on the TV? And I say, yes. And he wanted to give me $200.
Really?
Yeah, and so I could understand that man because he didn't have idea. You know, he was a typical New Zealander guy. He didn't have idea. So then I said, oh yeah, so you should, you know, just I was laughing at him and just I tried to educate him in 2 sentences. Later, I met a woman on the street and she approached me and said, oh, Behrouz, I watched your movie, I read your works, I read your book, you are this. And then she wanted to donate me. What I want to say, that how is difficult to challenge this narrative, even So the first person, so she didn't have idea, is fine. The second one, she read my works. She watched my movie, she read my book, she listened to my interviews, and all of this, still, she wanted to donate. So what I want to say is that how is difficult to challenge this narrative towards the refugees? How is difficult to challenge people imagination about refugees? Refugees are people with different background, different religion, different nationality, different culture. But everyone wants to just categorize them and look at them as a victim.
One
But
of your big
the refugees don't want to be victim.
Yep, I understand that really well. When I spoke to you yesterday, you talked a lot about that, Behrouz. You said people either, and you said the media essentially in the West says you are hero or you are victim. And I sense the Behrouz you want to say, I am not a hero and I'm not a victim. And I also feel that I want to speak on behalf of. This is not my personal story. Is that true?
Yeah, I think I'm really sorry that I talk about my story. Actually, I'm very tired of this story, so that's why I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
But of course, I was in that island for 6 years, and still I am doing some projects, so I cannot get away from that experience. And also I have responsibility towards those 6 years. That's why I should talk.
Sure.
The media, the people who know me, I think they know that I always challenge the language of the mainstream media. That how I always challenge them, challenge their language, because they follow the language of the power structure. So I always challenge that through my works. But so regarding my story, they always have this desire to reduce my story to a personal story. And it's not a personal story. If it was a personal story, I would leave Manus Island 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I would leave that island. I had enough supporters through the international organization. I mean the organization that are supporting the writers and journalists. I could try, at least I could try, and I'm sure I could leave long time ago. So it is not a personal story. And I didn't write about myself. Just recently, I became a subject. But before that, I just write about others. I write about politics. I write about colonialism. I write about local people. So why they think it is a personal story? It's not a personal story. That the media always try to reduce it. And also they reduce my work and this long struggle to writing a book. Sometimes I want to really, I don't have my book here, to take the book, and take a lighter and burn it.
Really?
In front of the camera.
Really?
Yeah, because in my perspective, I think if I have, if someone asks me this question, that which work is important for you, I think the first thing is my journalism works. at least 100 articles, opinion articles, and you can read the if someone have these articles in one book and read them, you see the history of that exile policy.
Yep.
That I look at this policy in different aspects. They are not report. They are opinion articles. The movie Choka, Please Tell Us the Time. People in Australia, many people know this movie, but many people don't know it. And that is I think it is a good work. And this book actually is not, it's not my only work.
Yeah. Tell us.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just I mean, the media always try to reduce it.
Yeah.
When they reduce it to a book, it means they deny 6 years fighting. And I should say it again, it is not a personal story. It's not my story. My story is only one of many stories. And many stories like me now are in detention in Australia, beside you, close to you, close to this library that now we are talking to.
Yes, yes.
In Australia, in Port Moresby, in Nauru, you know? So, but of course, I understand why many people become happy.
Behrouz, by that last statement, are you urging me? Are you saying, Bruno, my work is trying to say you, as an Australian living there, should be horrified, should be doing something, should be resisting?
Definitely. Yeah. You know, always when I talk, I always say that I'm really sorry that I have some anger in my voice.
Yeah.
I have anger in my works, and this anger make people of Australia feel uncomfortable. But I'm not here to make you feel comfortable.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
So
I'm here to tell this story, to make people feel uncomfortable, to think that why in that country, you know, after they keep people in detention for 7 years, and there is not a system that you challenge them at court. The court system completely failed. There is a person in Australia who is in detention for 11 years. 11 years, you know? We should think about this. But I understand it's really difficult. Australia is a very complex country.
Behrouz, is the role of all writing and poetry and journalism essentially to try and move people towards some kind of political action necessarily?
Yeah, definitely. It's not about awareness. I don't like this word.
No.
That people say, or Behrouz or someone else, let's do this project, let's do this interview to make people aware of this. Awareness is not enough. Now, Australian people, most of people at least should hear something from Manus. You know, people should hear, people are aware. We need understanding. We need people try to understand this tragedy. We need to people analyze this,
Behrouz,
then do action.
but that's the point, isn't it? We know we cannot. I am a father of grown men. A prime minister in Australia in 10 years will say sorry, and we will say we were there. We knew what was happening in Manus. We knew what the situation was. We cannot turn our eyes away from this.
That is
We
a
are
question.
horrified too.
Yeah, that is a question, really. But what I believe, that is a big question that Australian people should ask and think about it. Why creating change in that country is difficult? I never forget that time when I watched ABC program Q&A, on that time that there was a Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes.
They invited some Aboriginal actors. I didn't know them, but they were Aboriginal and they were actor and activists. It was so difficult when I saw that the actor, I forgot her name, she was very powerful. She speaks powerfully. She says, our message is simple. Don't kill us. She said that.
Yeah.
And everyone in the panel, everyone in the with the audience, everyone, they felt sorry. But I have this question. Why in that country, after 100 years, and according to many Aboriginal people, historians, more than 250 years, more than 200 years, after such a long time, an Aboriginal person should appear on TV and say, our message is simple, don't kill us. And when I saw that, when I watched that, I actually, I was thinking that, look, you wrote a book and you just published some articles and some others, just some people publish something about refugees and you want to challenge the narrative. You want to create change in that country. Look at these people. They have been fighting for 100 years and now their message is that simple, don't kill us. A very basic message, basic request.
Yeah.
So that I think about this. Why in that country creating change is difficult?
Yet, Behrouz,
we should think about this.
I think you challenge us very, very kind of wonderfully to do that. Why? You said through your film, Choka, please tell us the time, and I think you said it in some of your articles, you said the story of Manus and the story of Nauru and the story of the imprisonment of all those people there is now the history also of Australia. Are we able and big enough to be able to embrace that and genuinely say it is ours and we must look at it, not just be aware, but we must actually do something about that?
Yeah, actually, I think another word that I should talk about it is embarrassing, because when I, in the events or even in New Zealand, that I met lots of Australian people, and also online I received many messages, letters, that people say that we are sorry and we are embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think we should don't work in a way to make people feel embarrassed. That is not enough. We should work in a way that people really understand. We should help people to understand. It's that you do something wrong, then you say, I'm sorry. That is not enough, because you repeat it. So in Australia, you see that someone like Kevin Rudd, you know, just look at him, you know, and politicians like him, that they started this, or before that, John Howard, all of these people, you know, look at them, they are repeating the history. They repeat the history in different, on different group of people, you know. Just, I think what I want to say, just we should help people to really understand. Yeah, understand. But just, I think I should mention this. Yeah, I'm sorry. Just mention this, that I should mention that for creating change, I think we should create we should challenge it through cultural activities and through writing, through art. You know, recently I talk. So I hear that you. So you know Tara June Winch, the Australian Aboriginal writer. I think when I look at her work, that she actually challenged the narrative, challenged the narrative through literature. I think that really, it's very important when we look at her work. Even when I look at her work, I think about Kurdistan too. That how we should use literature, art, to actually educate the new generation, to challenge it. We should create our language, create our concept, and
but Behrouz, you are doing that
history.
right now. You are doing that right now, aren't you? This interview is a challenge. We are trying to give voice to that. I sense that you feel that that's quite not enough, or not strong enough, or not powerful enough.
No, I don't feel that. I feel that I am I am a man, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's not enough, one person, two person, 10 books, 20 books. I mean, creating this way is important.
Absolutely.
You know, creating this way. When I look at my works, actually, I don't look at my works. I look at the way that I and other refugees in Manus Island, we created this way, and that's why I received many messages from refugees around the world that, brother, I am going to write about my story. I am going, you know, I mean, that is impact. That make me feel hopeful.
Absolutely.
That
So
because why? Yeah, because
empowering.
we are creating our knowledge.
Yeah.
We are creating our language and knowledge.
Behrouz, we have some questions from the audience.
Yes, actually, Behrouz, there's a lot on our Q&A panel that are in support of everything that you have just been saying. And they find that it's very powerful of you to be sitting there and challenging us. And all the messages are, yes, we need to be challenged, and yes, it's uncomfortable, but we need to address this and we need to acknowledge it. And they're all very thankful and supportive of you.
Thank you. I'm challenging myself too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I have a message
Challenge
from someone called Azimi, who sends a message to you, Behrouz, saying, I'm so happy for you to be a free man after years in prison. I was in Indonesia for 6 years and resettled here in Australia late last year. And he sends his regards to you.
yeah, thank you.
One thing that has come up a couple of times, Behrouz, is people would like to know what poets and writers you admire.
I admire. I say that Tara Jumich. No, actually, of course, there are lots of writers, but just recently I am reading short stories by the writers from South America. I like them, and someone like Cortázar, someone like Rolfo, Marquez. It's just I'm reading those books, but of course there are some writers that I really like them. But if I talk about the Iranian literature, I like Abbas Ma'rufi. I think his works are very powerful. In Kurdistan, if I talk about Bakhtiyar Ali, Sherko Bikas. Yeah, there are a number of very good writers and poets, but I myself, I don't recognize myself as a poet, because in my perspective, poet is not someone who just writes some poetry sometimes. The poet is someone who work for create his or her language, that even when you read the work, you understand, oh, this poetry is belong to that person, you know? When, like a singer, when we hear some songs from someone, we understand that is for that singer. So I think in poetry is like this too. So that's why my poetry are quite different. So just I should put my name there. Behrouz Boochani say this. Then people say, oh, this is for. But if we take the name, I think people don't understand, don't recognize it. And that's why I don't know myself as a poet. Yeah.
Well, Behrouz, I've got a few people wanting to know when your next book's coming out. And
yeah,
will it
actually,
be fiction, or will it be another non-fiction piece?
Yeah, no, actually we are, actually I didn't have this time really to have some piece, because because I have been busy. There were lots of things happen in the media and this social media. But now we are working on a book with actually the people from Melbourne University. That this book is a collection of my articles that I published in Manus Island, but some of them, like 25 of my articles, in one book. And we asked some researchers from Australia and around the world to respond to these articles, to analyze them. So that is a book that we did actually, just we will publish it next year. So just we have it. Another one is a journal that we are working with Janet Galbraith and Omid. So this journal is a collection of writing and short stories and poetry which written by the refugees in Indonesia, in Manus, Nauru, and in Australia detention.
Wow.
So that Janet Galbraith, through writing through Frances group, yeah, she collected. So we are going to publish this. So it is another project. But I myself, I'm writing short stories, which is fiction. So I'm not in hurry. Yeah. So hopefully next year, next 2 years, I don't know. It's difficult to talk about literature. To say, next year I publish this article, this book. Yeah.
Very
It's
exciting. I know that there'll be a lot of people who will be anxious to get their hands on those books, Behrouz. I've also had a few people ask me about identity. You talk a lot about identity and the challenge of your identity and how the media set up your identity. How do you see yourself and how would you like other people to see you?
Just, I think, I just see myself as a man, you know, as a person. Yeah, just like others, you know. And I think we should talk about the hero concept, victim concept, and hero victim concept. I'm not that.
One question that keeps popping up is, what advice do you have for us as to how we can help the situation for other people? Yeah, about refugees, people who are feeling in our community that they don't belong, that are searching for identity.
Yeah, it's really difficult question. It is a question, and I think I have been thinking about this, and I'm sure that you have been thinking about this. It's very difficult to create change in Australia, but just we should fight. No way, you know. So each person is not important that what you do. Just each person should do something.
Everyone's very thankful for your words of wisdom and the way that you've challenged us, and very supportive audience out there, Behrouz, for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, many people are sending their thanks and thanking you for being courageous and for sharing your story with us. Yeah,
thank you.
No, thank you. And I've just got one more question for you. How do you see Australia?
I don't want to talk about my personal story, but there is a paradoxical feeling towards Australia because, you know, lots of people now are in front of those hotels in Australia that they keep the refugees there, and they are there. They are standing up there. Some of them are playing music. Some of them they are doing something. Now we are here. You created this opportunity that I talk about this. We receive many messages from people. Many people have been really fighting against this system and challenge it to at least get freedom for the refugees who are in detention. So we have these beautiful things, and that happen in that country. But in other side, we have different part of Australia which created this horrible, unacceptable thing in Manus Island, Nauru, and now in Australia. So that's why it's really difficult. I don't know what should I say about that. And if I say Australian government, this Australian government, this supported by at least half of the Australian people.
It's true. Yeah.
So I don't want to be idealist and say just Australian government. It's mean Peter Dutton and Scott Morrison and their cabinets. No, that government re-elected by at least half of the Australian population. So I don't know, really, it's very difficult question. Just I can say one thing, that I am really, I cannot hide my anger as a person who see that those people who are in detention for 7 years. And yeah, that really, I think, make lots of people angry. And I'm really sorry. I'm one person, you are one person, everyone. Yeah, just we are people.
Well, you've got a lot of messages of support coming through for you, Behrouz. So thank you. And thank you for being so honest with us tonight, and for taking time to meet us all the way from New Zealand. Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Behrouz.
For providing such
thank you very much.
for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
We should go.
We should go. We should go. I'm just going to say, if anyone would like to purchase their own copy of No Friend But the Mountains, Writing from Manus Prison, the Sun Bookshop has copies available, and you can now go online and order them. Also, just a note to our participants, an email will go out with a short evaluation form. If you could fill that in and give us some feedback, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't forget, we're live on Instagram and Facebook, so follow us and like us, and that way you'll keep in contact, keep informed about new and exciting events just like this one. And thank you both once again. It's been an absolute wonderful evening, and we wish you all the best. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
Good night, Behrouz.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.